With me in the studio this hour, Ambassador Yoram Ettinger is the former Israeli ambassador and congressional affairs liaison at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Joining us tonight from Washington, D.C., Hussain Abdul-Hussain is a research fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, the FDD. Thank you for joining us, Hussain. Good to see you as always. Ambassador Ettinger, are we reaching a breaking point now in the north? Is war with Hezbollah inevitable?
Well, what we're witnessing is the direct relation between the war in the south and the potential or actual war in the north. The more hesitant Israel seems to be in the face of American pressure, the more emboldened is Hezbollah. On the other hand, the more intent and decisive is Israel in pursuing the war all the way to the elimination, the devastation of Hamas. So will Hezbollah be more deterred. The interesting thing is that the U.S. is pressuring Israel to refrain from an all-out war against Hamas, namely refrain from actually devastating Hamas, and that is a pressure which runs contrary to America's own interest. Hamas is the branch of the Muslim Brotherhood which threatens every single pro-American Arab regime. Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood which is intent to bring the so-called infidel West, including the US, to submission. Hamas and Hezbollah are proxies of Iran, the #1 epicenter of anti-American terrorism, and therefore the US pressuring Israel in fact provides tailwind to Hamas, to Hezbollah, and to Iran.
All right, thank you. Let me bring in Hussain. Well, Hussain, Hezbollah's being hit pretty hard. I mean, the IDF says it has hit 4,500 Hezbollah targets, 300 Hezbollah operatives killed. I mean, what is their strategy here?
Well, I'm not sure that Hezbollah realized when they first started this that this would be as hard as it looks now. They probably thought that the war between Israel and Hamas would be a short one. And if they peg their own war to the war with Hamas, then the minute there's a truce, the war will stop between them and Israel, and they will emerge victorious. And Nasrallah would have really would have really kept the promise to unify the fronts, as he used to call it. Now things look much more complicated, and we are certain that independent or regardless of what happens in Gaza and between Israel and Hamas, the war between Israel and Hezbollah has taken a life of its own, and there are two positions that to my mind look irreconcilable, and there will be war sooner or later. And I don't think Hezbollah has anything to offer Israel to bring this confrontation between them to an end. So what we're seeing now is escalation. I think everyone thinks that war will break out. The only question is exactly when this will happen.
All right, Hussain, thank you. And Yoram Ettinger, I mean, just picking up with what you were saying about US support for this, at the very beginning, the Biden administration brought aircraft carriers to the region to try and deter Hezbollah. President Biden, one word for Hezbollah, that is don't. I mean, that was ignored. What does that say about US influence in the region?
Well, it's a question of US policy, which is currently set by the State Department, especially Secretary of State Blinken, who sets Biden's policy, who navigates Biden, and Secretary Blinken is intent to subordinate Middle East reality to his own alternative reality. And therefore, the pressure is on Israel to refrain from the military option. Secretary Blinken believes in the diplomatic option. He does not believe in military option. The problem is that we're dealing with the Middle East, not with the US-Canada border and not with Western Europe, which would fit Secretary of Blinken alternative reality. And the challenge facing today the US, in my mind, is to either follow Secretary Blinken's path of appeasing Iran and appeasing Hezbollah and appeasing Hamas, or to follow the advice of the armed forces of the US, the national intelligence of the US. Those elements do recognize the reality of the Middle East, which is only destabilized by the pressure on Israel to refrain from demolishing an enemy, which is an enemy not only of Israel, but of the US itself.